Welcome to Practical C++ Programming, the beginner course. My name is Zach, and in this tutorial we will be continuing our Hangman application. So in this tutorial I've kind of already got the print board code already programmed, and the reason why I went ahead and did it is because you really don't want to sit here for 25 minutes and watch me code out all this, nitty-gritty stuff that basically you can do on your own. All I'm doing is using my formatting tab operators, and I'm kind of drawing out with these, standard characters, this Hangman guy. And you can see as the lives, the way I did it, the way I programmed it was in this function, takes parameter of lives, and I use a switch case, and as the lives go down to 0, the man is fully drawn. But as the lives go up to 5, the man isn't fully drawn. He's only halfway drawn, and when he has full lives, there's no man there at all. But basically, it's real easy code. You can draw it however you want. But for those of you who just want to use this, I would say study it a little bit, but not too much, because it's pretty simple stuff. It's just you can customize it yourself. You can make it bigger if you want or whatever, but this is the way that I usually do it. And I will provide this code for you in the resources tab of this lecture, so you can actually download this code and just copy and paste it into your program if you want, because like I said, typing it out is kind of a hassle, and but if you want to do it yourself, that's perfectly fine, so it's up to you. But what I do want to do in this tutorial is work on our print blanks function. And it's actually a pretty simple function that's just going to print out the blanks and then the letters of each word that we use. And we're going to have to use quite a bit of our string functions that we discussed in a previous tutorial to get what we want out of this print blanks function. So to begin, all we're going to do is create a for loop, integer I equals 0, and then I is going to be less than the parameter chosen word, and all chosen word is going to be a word from our word list that was chosen by our our get word function with the generate random number generator, and whatever word is chosen we're going to pass into this function as chosen word. And so we want I to be less than chosen word dot size. And remember, this was one of those string functions that we talked about in the previous tutorials. And then we'll just say I++ and open our for loop. And now inside this for loop we want two things to happen. We want if the chosen word, if the letter at index 0 of the chosen word, let's say the first letter of the chosen word is A, and A is in any of the indexes of letter guessed, then we want to print out A on screen. But if A is not in any of the indexes of letter guessed, then we want to print a blank. So to do that, we're going to use some more string functions, and we're going to say if, and we're going to use letters guessed dot find. Remember, this is a string function native to all the string data types or string objects, and we're going to find the letter of chosen word dot at I. And what this is saying, this function, it's going to seem really complicated at first, but these are all string functions that I kind of told you to study and earlier in this section. And all it's saying is we're going to get this string, this word, this list of letters, and we're going to look in it, we're going to find to see if this letter, if chosen word at I, that's just going to return a single letter. So if this is chosen word dot at 3, it's going to return the fourth letter of this chosen word. So if the chosen word was, buzzard, it would return, or let's say the chosen word was truck, then and index I was 3, it's going to return C, because 3 is actually goes 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's the fourth letter. It would return C. And all this is saying is find, in letters guessed, find C. And if it's found, then it's going to return something other than -1. But if it's not found, it's going to return -1. So to kind of determine whether it was found or not, we just say letters guessed.find chosen word.at I not equal to -1, and that means it was found. As long as this operation doesn't return -1, then we know the letter was found somewhere in the function. And so this if statement is saying that the letter was found, and so all we do is cout chosen word.at I, and we'll add a space at the end of it just to give it some spacing. And that's just saying, you know, output the letter of this word at a certain index. So really study that. And then the alternative, we'll just say else, because the alternative is that it was -1, which means it wasn't found at all. And if that's the case, we want to print out a blank, the space at the end, to give it some space. So, you know, this is the alternative. This means that the letter wasn't found in letters guessed. So we're going to leave it blank. And that's all this is. This is all there is to this function. And if we can actually test it real quick. So we'll save this. Let's go up to our main function and let's test it. So we're going to say, you know, here we go. Main function is up here. You know, we'll go ahead and say string word equals get word, and we'll output word real quick at the top of the screen so that you know what the word is. But then I also want to run print blanks, and we're going to pass in word as the chosen word, and then let's just pass in some letters ourselves. We'll pass in RST, LNE. I think those are the most famous Wheel of Fortune letters. So these are the letters guessed that we're saying are guessed. And if we run this program, we should get no errors. And hold on, it stopped working. If we run this program, here we go. The word was Linux, and since N was one of our letters guessed, we get the letter N. Now you might see that L is capital L, and we have L here. That's something I need to fix, obviously. I think I have capital letters in my word list. So we're actually going to change that. I'll change that in between tutorials, because obviously that's a bug in our program, because we want all our words in our word list to be lowercase, because whenever we enter, you know, lowercase l, that's not going to show up because that's capital L, even though it should be there. And so let's go ahead and run it one more time just to show you. So truck, you know, as you can see, the R was there because we have an R. The T wasn't because this is a capital T in truck. We have a lowercase t. So I will have to change that. Small bug. And there's a way to get around it. You know, if you can check and basically say if, you know, if it's capital letter or lowercase letter, count it anyways. Fill in the blank. But you just have to add more code. And if you want to do that, then I challenge you to go ahead and do that. But that's the basic functionality of print blanks. And while we're here, we're going to go ahead and take out the comment of our while loop, and let's go ahead and add some basic stuff to it. So we'll say, since we have all our functions planned out and everything that we need, we can basically go ahead and add the rest of what we need to this loop. And all that is we'll basically say, you know, print board. We'll pass in user lives, which is 7, and then we'll say let's give the user some instructions. We'll say cout, you know, give it some new lines. And we'll say, oh, well, first of all, we want to tell them what letters have been guessed. So we'll say letters guessed. Let's actually create a string for that. We'll say string letters guessed equals, and we'll say see out letters guessed. There you go. So now they can see what letters they've guessed. And then we'll say see out enter a letter. Oops, sorry guys. We'll say enter a letter. Then we'll use CN. We'll say string, we'll just call it guess. We'll say CN guess. There we go. And that right there will basically, so we're just telling them what they've guessed. We're printing out the board, which is going to start out as a clean board, no man hanging from it. No letters guessed. It'll say enter a letter. We'll enter the guess, and then the first thing we need to do is say letters guessed plus equals. Remember, that's just going to add the string to it. We'll add guess to it. So now letters guessed is going to have guess in it. And then we need to, well, first of all, we need to get our word. So that's another thing we need to add real quick. So let's say, we'll say string word equals get word. There we go. So now we have string word equals get word. And that's basically just going to return, remember, that's going to return a word from our word bank. And we're going to store it in Word. And then what we need to do is print blanks. And we actually want to do that before this. So we'll say print board, and then we'll say, let's give us a little bit of space, and we'll say print blanks. And we'll say word letters guessed. And that'll print out all blanks the first time. Letters guessed plus equals guess. And then basically, if we want to check and see if it was in it, so let's go back down to print blanks. Actually, I think we can actually do that in here. Yeah, there we go. And we could add that in if we want. But actually, let's just go ahead and do that up here. We're going to do that in the main function. But you could do it in either one. We'll say letters plus equals guess. We'll say if. Word dot find guess does not equal -1. Continue. And basically this is just going to continue more into the loop, and then we'll say else, because this means that they got the guess right, and then it's automatically going to update it. And we'll say else lives minus, or I think we called it user lives minus. There we go. Now let's go ahead and run that and just make sure everything runs okay. So if you look at that, we got our 4 blanks printed out. Our Hangman, I'll say enter a letter. Let's just enter in R. There we go. And it goes ahead and draws it. And if we enter in, let's say B, we don't get it. It draws another one. Let's say L. And look, it adds it to our blank. E, there we go. E adds to our blank. U, B, and you can see the word was blue, but obviously there's still some bugs because it's not letting us know when we win. And keep going, I think, until we can enter multiple letters. Process returns 0 because our lives went out. And we'll just fix a few minor things to make sure that, if it's 0, it'll print out our full guy. But so that's pretty much what we wanted to go over in this tutorial. I want to go ahead and add one more thing that you haven't seen before, and that is at the end of each, before we continue, in each of these statements, I want to add a line that says system CLS, which tells the console to clear, and it'll actually make our game look a lot better. So you'll see what I mean when we run it again. Let's go ahead and run it, and it'll say, so let's enter in G, and as you can see, it's not running down the screen anymore like it was the last time, and that's because when we clear the screen, it's reprinting it all in the same exact spot, so it looks like it's not going anywhere. And that's the kind of effect that we want. So that system CLS is something new, but something easy and something that you can use in all your applications. I just wanted to go ahead and show you that. So in the next tutorial, we're going to completely finish it up and then test drive our application and conclude our class. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.